Hey guys, what is up? Kit here, bringing you another deck profile. This time on Kongming control is kind of what I'm calling it. It's just basically a very hard control Kongming list that I've been enjoying a lot more. It kind of takes advantage of one of the big things that Tera and Kongming can do very well, which is draw a lot of cards, especially once you hit level 3. So we'll kind of get into it, and I'll talk about it more, how I abuse that effect for the deck. So obviously we're still on Spit of Water. Water is just one of the better control elements. I think the other one kind of is Wind, but if you're playing Wind, just play Razorgale Kongming. It's probably better. But yeah, so Spirit of Water, draw 7 because we want the most influences possible, so we can make very good plays in the beginning. Next, obviously, we play the level 1, 2, and 3 Kongming. Level 1 gives us the Mastery. Level 2 gives us Empower 3, which is actually important a little bit in this deck. And then the inherited effect, whenever we go from north to south, we get to draw a card, which is one of the ways we can draw up to 3 cards a turn once we hit level 3. And then level 3 Kongming has the on enter, we can heal X, where X is the number of tarot card elements banished. So generally, we only heal 1 to 2 at most with this card usually. And then we have, whenever we cast a spell, we get to move the shifting currents in an adjacent direction, which comes up quite often for the deck. It's very, very good. Next, we still kind of play the same material package that we play in like the other versions of Kongming, because Kongming just has the ability to do that a lot of the times. We have backup charger, we play water, so fracturizing the power cell is pretty good. And then we get the draw, obviously. Fan 7 Debts is like our kill turn card, where it also draws us a card. We can set this up early, so when we're ready to go push for game, we can use this to get multiple Bagwas off. GCR, once again, influence is important. Depending on our early game, there are turns where we have to go 4 cards down, and they choose to get their card negated instead of letting us draw 2 with rejection. That way, when that happens, we can go to GCR if we don't plan to level up that turn from Spirit to get a draw to get influence up again. Nullifying Lantern, we just play a lot of defensive tools in this, so Nullifying Lantern is really good. Same thing with Nullifying Mirror. Safeguard Amulet, getting burned out is one of the ways this deck struggles sometimes if we don't get to 3 quick enough and have something like Sage to stabilize us. So Safeguard helps us get there as well, or like kind of stops a turn of us losing the game. Sometimes all we really need is 1 extra turn as the control deck to win games. Terrafring, to slow down our opponents. Anytime we think they're going into a sweep turn, we can bring this out before. On the turn we think they're going to sweep, we can just pop the Terrafring, so now it costs them essentially 6 if we're playing against like Fire Lorraine, for example, to sweep. And then if we have like Frostbind or something, and in this case, Cerulean Decree just stops that, or not Cerulean Decree, but if we have like rejection and stuff, that makes it more awkward. They're more incentivized for us to draw 2 essentially from it. But if we have Ceasing Edict as well, that answers the sweep turn essentially. And then finally, something we'll find different than most other lists I think are currently playing is Kernel of Rejuvenation. This card actually goes insane for this deck because we get to abuse the fact that we're playing Extricating Touch in this list, which is one of my favorite water cards. And I'm really excited for the next set because I think this card's going to pop off and get a lot more play moving forward for water. And then this lets us recycle it, as well as if we decide to bring in Regal Inquisitions, this lets us recycle the Inquisitions as well. So we get like a fake extra hand to play with as well once per turn. This card's really good. I'll talk about it more once we can talk about it more. Dungeon Guide, we're a level 3 deck. Being able to go level 2 and then straight into level 3 a lot of times is like the main game plan, but then also we can just chill on level 2 if we want, for as long as we want, until we're ready to really go into level 3. We have some cards in here that interact very well with the Empower that we get from the level 2. Prior lists didn't have very good like payoffs for having the Empower 3 from going into level 2, but this list does. So Dungeon Guide also helps us get into those states of when we're ready to go level 3 and start drawing 3 cards a turn essentially. Dungeon Guide basically lets us have not have to use a materialization phase to level up, which is really important. Cheating materialization phases in this game is probably one of the strongest things you could be doing in general, because the 12 card deck of materialization cards, anytime you don't have to waste a turn to bring one out, is just a huge, like I want to say, a tempo swing for you and advantage for you. So anytime you see a card that says you can activate this card from your material deck instead of having to materialize it, that card's probably pretty busted. So this is the card that I've got put on by one of my buddies here in locals, Nick. Indolent Leisure. This is a really strong payoff or option for using our Empower during level 2, and then after level 3, this just becomes like essentially a draw 2. So in the prior versions of the deck, I always wanted like, dang, I wish I could play. I think it's Turbocharge. Lets you draw 2 for a second to Power Cell. I wish I could play that sometimes, but I never found like a good way to like incorporate that in the deck. Indolent Leisure like creates that gap for you that it's kind of like playing Turbocharge, but not having to waste the Power Cell. Instead, you can fracturize it if you'd like, which is very nice. So a lot of times we go to level 2, get empowered, and we're literally kind of like a draw go deck essentially. So we'll play Indolent Leisure once we get the Empower out, going to level 2. Get a draw 2 essentially from this card because you have the level 3 plus class bonus, and then you draw a card as well, and then you kind of pass to your opponent. This is a very solid payoff. It's a card that you don't mind seeing at level 2, like when you go to level 2, and just be able to use it immediately with the Empower. Otherwise, at level 3, it's still kind of like a draw 2, and at the same time, it helps us, create that make it easier for us to draw into our finishers, because one of the biggest issues with Kongming right now is it doesn't have a lot of ways to close games out because you need to see multiple Bogwas and stuff. That's kind of like the best payoff the deck has, unless we go very high float counts to play like forgetting the name of the card right now, but it's the 6 cost that you deal 3 damage for every float you banish. So obviously, because we're not playing that, Bogwa is kind of our only way to really close out games. Otherwise, it's swinging with like little allies for like 2 and 3 occasionally, or like 1 and 3 actually. So this can help us draw it more into our deck, which helps us get closer to our win condition a little bit quicker. Rejection, I talked about this in the prior deck profile. I'll talk about it a little bit again, but try to do it as quick as possible. Basically, this is our like little speed road bump along the way. If our opponent is going to do something that lets them go up an advantage, we try to rejection it. They either lose out in that advantage, we 1-for-1 them, or we get to draw 2 cards and stay with parallel with them essentially. As far as influence goes, really strong card. You should play with it. I have a whole video talking about how you should be using this card, so check that video out as well. I go a little bit more deeper into like play patterns for this card, and then it's just a really solid card overall. And if you play against someone who doesn't know what the correct option is, either to let you draw 2 or get their card negated, sometimes people will let you draw 2 and they shouldn't, and then that you just snowball from the game from there, and you just win the game because you just have too much influence and they can't play through everything and all your defensive stuff. Same thing as before Ceasing Edict. It's basically a 0 cost Song of Frost for you. It's really good right now in this DTR meta where there's a lot of decks that are just swinging with weapons and stuff like that, or allies to close the game or win the game that way. This just says no, and this helps protect either your allies or yourself a lot of the times. This is your big answer against decks that play sweeps that just deal damage to the whole board. You just negate their attack, their sweep, and they've lost cards and wasted their turn essentially. Busted card for Kongming. Cerulean Decree, love-hate relationship with this card. You can negate things that are non-attack cards. It doesn't come up too often. It comes up a little bit more often because of this style of deck you're playing, because we're playing so much extricating touch to like kind of hurt their influence and hurt their plays as well. So occasionally the pay 2 might come up occasionally more often where they can't really pay the 2, but a lot of times you're using this either to draw a card into memory and then -3 on attack a lot more often than not. Still a solid card. Once again, it helps you if you need to cycle a little bit more. Being able to just pay 3 to cycle a card essentially is still really good at recollection phase. That way you can get to your win condition a little bit more. It's a spell as well, so your level 3 will move your shifting currents with this as well. Coriolis Ward, one of the big reasons again to be playing a Kongming deck. Coriolis Ward is a card that lets you go hand neutral essentially, as long as your shifting currents is facing west. You get to draw a card in memory, as well as essentially block damage to a unit or yourself. This card is what gives you the bridge to be able to basically outlive aggro decks and burn decks. Seeing multiple of these and being sure to get the draw off of the going west is really good. That way to keep your influence up with and protect yourself or units on the board. You use this to protect Hydro Guards a lot of the time. Otherwise, you protect other units that are very important, and just being able to cycle essentially. Very, very powerful card. Now, Extricating Touch is a card that doesn't get played very often. I know there was a lot of hype built around it in the beginning when it was first released, and then it basically disappeared. So this card basically reads, at least for mages and clerics, pay 2 and 1 for 1 your opponent. Doesn't seem very powerful. But the thing is, a lot of the things that we don't want to deal with are things we can't necessarily guarantee to negate a lot of the time, or they're advanced element cards that we just don't want our opponent to be able to play out, for example, like Pendragons. So Touch is really, really powerful as a mid-game tool, or even early in the game if there's something you want to make sure your opponent doesn't have, or if you need to close out the game, you want to make sure there's no negates or block damage or something like that. You can play Touch first, then do your whole Bagua shenanigans after. But what makes it so powerful in Kongming specifically, and you probably might also get a lot of advantage from Merlin, so like playing Touch in Water Merlin is a little bit better than Kongming, I would say. Maybe it just really depends, but the fact that it's a spell also lets you move the currents, which is really good. But you use this as a mid-game tool most of the time, where if you have a couple of these in the mid-game, you can just slam them down, rip out the cards from your opponent's hand before they go into level 3. It's like any of the advanced element stuff that you don't want them to be playing out. Like I said, Pendragon and stuff, you get a 1 for 1 them. But the big payoff for playing this card is that once you've used it once, you go into level 3, you use Rejuvenation, and you get to play it again every turn. So like games where you play 2 to 3 of these, or even get all 4 of them into the graveyard if your opponent mills them or something like that, you get to recycle them again, which is busted. You don't go down a card essentially because you are reusing a resource that you've already used. Is not actually part of your influence. It's an extension of your hand essentially because of this card, which means your opponent goes down influence, you don't. And the fact that you get to recycle your touches that you've already used, or ones that have been discarded into the grave for whatever reason, is really, really powerful. Same thing with Regal of Inquisition. When you sideboard them into certain matchups, being able to use it and then use it again if needed to like deck out your opponent, because we also deck ourselves out a lot very often, but being able to regal your opponent and like basically make them dump a 10 card hand and make them draw another 10 card hand is really powerful sometimes. But it also like clears the way for a lot of your win conditions, making sure they don't have counters and negates or ways to block damage when you go off on your Bagua turn. But yeah, Touch is a criminally undervalued card right now. I think in the next the PTM meta, it's gonna go off like really, really hard. If you don't have a playset of this card, honestly, it doesn't cost that much. If you're a big water fan, just have 4 in the binder. It'll either pop off or it won't be see play at all. I personally think it's going to be really, really powerful in the next set. So buy it now while it's kind of cheap. It's an SR card that like usually costs like $5 each. So just spend the $20, get the playset, and keep it in your binder forever if you're a water main like myself who just loves playing control decks. Fracturize, we already know, really great card. Fracturize our power cells, stuff like that. And its float, not much to say. Frostborn Paladin, once again, one of the better allies to be playing in water. It's essentially a 3-cost 3/4 that draws your card if you banish a float. I mean, what else do you want? It has intercept. It's a good card. Just buy 4, play it. Frozen Dismissal. Now, this is a card that playing 4 might be kind of dumb. I will admit that. But I kind of like it. Like, I think at most I would cut 1 and then put the 4th one to the side and put something else from the sideboard in, maybe like a 1 Blanche or something, just in case, or the 3rd Sage if needed. But the reasoning for this card is that a lot of people can pay 2 for the ally, 2 extra for their important ally, but they can't always play 4, especially once they go to level 3. Frozen Dismissal is one of our best answers to like a Merlin or a Lorraine going to 3, turboing to 3, having not that big of an influence immediately. They try to play their Pendragon, you just Frozen Dismissal it and it's gone. Any cats that come out as well, for example, if we don't want to have to worry about Cheshire cats just ruining our day, once they start getting all the swords out and stuff, making it swing for 3 to 4, we can just say Frozen Dismissal and it's gone, because a lot of times they can't pay the 4. It's not beneficial for them to pay the 4, and sometimes just making them pay the 4, then going to your turn and having them go hands down to keep their really important ally, letting you now play your Bagua turn of like playing 6 Baguas essentially, and you get to win the game. Card is very powerful in that sense, because some of the things we can't necessarily deal with very, very well are those big chunky allies, or the allies that generally win games or make our opponents go up a lot in advantage. Having Frozen Dismissal feels really, really good. We don't get the class bonus, obviously, to make it cost 2. If we did, that'd be great. But otherwise, like, allies is one, especially, yeah, the way we deal with allies in this deck is not very, very powerful until later in the game. That's why Frozen Dismissal early and late game still feels really good. Hydro Guard Retainer, we are on Kongming and Water. This is just like, if you get to play multiple of these and they don't get answered quick enough, you just take over the control of the game, because you get to draw a card essentially every other turn, moving it from north to the west over and over again. And then if you get multiple and they live multiple turns that you get to draw 2 cards off of them, you've kind of won the game. And once again, a 1/4 ally is kind of annoying to deal with. When you have multiple taunts on the board, you can retaliate to protect one of the Hydro Guards, and now for example, they have to swing into the Bullfrog to get into the Hydro Guard, which is really annoying. Hydro Guard's a really good card. Unfortunately, it only has 1 attack, and so it's kind of awkward. A lot of times you do poke a lot against your opponent, just to like kind of whittle them down a bit, so your Bagwas, you don't have to play as many Bagwas to win the game. Rising Tide is another card that I now started playing because I wanted another card to pay off for the Empower. So for example, you go to level 2, you let the on enter resolve, you get the Empower 3, then you can play Rising Tide and get a float into the grave and draw a card into your recollection, and then be able to use that card immediately. What's nice about Rising Tides too is once you get to level 3 as well, it's just a card that keeps letting you cycle more through your deck, so you can find your win conditions faster or find the cards that you need faster. It's like kind of like playing 4 less cards in your deck, same thing with Indolent Leisure. We just have more ways to like dig through our deck quicker, because one of the things the deck struggles with a lot of times is finding like 2 Bagwas to start like pushing a lot of damage to our opponent every turn. Especially finding the first Bagwa is really important, so we can start cycling 1 Bagwa every turn into our best Xander Luxem impression and start dealing 4 every turn until we have extra Bagwas to pop off. Also, one thing to note too is when we get to level 3, a lot of times we have to play 2 spells a turn to be able to draw 3 cards a turn. This could be the second spell you play during your recollection phase to push your current back north to be able to go south again and draw a card off of it. A lot of the times the play pattern is Tera Support, push the card east or west, then Rising Tides to push it north and draw a card to memory, Recollect, draw your cards, then go to Instep, go south and draw another card. So you essentially draw 3 cards that turn, or technically 4 if you count Rising Tides draw into memory. But yeah, it's just helps you cycle through your deck a lot more. It helps you move your shifty currents. It's a cost 2 that goes neutral as well, level 3, to move your currents around, which feels very, very good. 4 of Thronekeeper Bullfrog. I love and hate this card. It's just there to help us stop the aggression in these decks that are swinging with allies or have a lot of like 1 swing attack allies coming through, like Shopkeeps and stuff like that. So they can't just like get free damage on us. And if they ever remove this card, we do get the floating memory, which feels good. I have a love-hate relationship with this card a lot of the times too, because it'll sit on board and just do nothing. Like, it'll do nothing in some matchups too, where your opponent has no incentive to ever remove this because they're not really attacking and they're using spells most of the time to like get through, or they don't really care that it's sitting there. It just sits there and does nothing. You have no real way to like sack it yourself in this version of the deck to get the float into grave to be able to use. And unfortunately, there's no real good answer that also synergizes with the deck very well. So right now it's still in here as like the stopgap measure for dealing with our opponent's stuff. If they play a lot of like wide low attack allies, it at least like usually eats 2 attacks before it gets removed. So we can, live long enough to get to our level 3 and beat all of the aggro matchups very easily. Water Barrier here is a 2 of. I still like this card a lot, but I feel like 2 is more than enough a lot of the time. Once again, it kind of mitigates the aggro damage when people are burning us for like with fireballs of like 10 damage from Merlin. Now it only does 1. If they do a sweep, we only take 1 damage instead. It's just a very solid card overall. Some matchups you want the full set of 4 or so. That's why we have 2 in the sideboard. But I've been very happy with it being at 2. 4 Bagwa of Vital Demise. This is our main win condition. We kind of have to see 1 eventually, and then hopefully we get to see 2 or 3, and then we get to go off. What's really nice about this too is because we're playing Rejuvenation, if it ever gets sent to the grave or milled from our deck or something, Rejuvenation, or we can't get it into our material deck to preserved, Rejuvenation lets us try again with it essentially. Like I said, Rejuvenation has been a really powerful card in this deck. Being able to cycle or reuse these spells feel really good. Next, Septernal Sage, same thing as in the last deck. It's just a really solid ally overall, 3/3 that recovers 3 whenever it attacks. And Power 3 never comes up that often for anything, but it's still very powerful of an ally. It's 3/3. It's really annoying to deal with. It has Preserve, so when your opponent does deal with it, it gets preserved, and you just add it back to your hand and play it again, which is really strong. And then we have Terracite. One of the big reasons to be playing the Terra element is all the free extra draws you get every turn. Once you get Terracite into your preserved, into your material deck, if you don't have to bring out a defensive tool, you basically get to draw 2 cards a turn for the rest of the game, which feels really good. One of the other things about this card is it combos very well with Rejuvenation, because part of the cost of Rejuvenation is that you get to banish a card from your material deck that has been preserved. If you banish Terracite, you still get to play the card that turn to move your Shifting Current if you need it and draw a card, and it costs nothing. So you still get to go up in hand size, still like you get to play Terracite, and the Terracite still gets preserved after you use it. Finally, we have our sideboard here. I'll talk about a little bit. Art of War is to like mitigate more the Wind Wake Ups and the super aggressive aggro decks. Bringing this in instead of having a GCR a lot of the time gives you enough breathing room that they can never really win or close out the game because of the amount of taunts and stuff you have. This is part of the reason, like, if this becomes a main board card into our material deck, I might actually take out Thronekeeper Bullfrog or cut the amount I'm playing, because this is kind of effectively does the same thing. But what's really interesting about this card is that if you don't understand the rolling with Coronal of Rejuvenation here, any card that is banished by this card, even as a cost or the preserved card, you can use those cards and play them essentially. So if you use Art of War as the cost for this card, Art of War gets banished by it, which means that after using it, you can tap this to play Art of War again onto the board and then use it again as a float if you want, or still to mitigate your opponent, because we don't do a lot of attacking with our allies essentially, other than like Frostborn Paladin coming out and swinging in for 3 or Septernal Sage. So it can make it very awkward where, like, maybe you play Coronal Rejuvenation, you eat the Art of War, and then you play your Sage, swing with Sage, heal 3, then you use Rejuvenation to replay the Art of War, and now your opponent can't swing in to remove your Sage, so you get another turn of the Sage, and instead of having to bring the Sage back to your hand during a materialization phase, instead you can just, get Terracite again. And then that feels really powerful when it comes up, and it feels like a really strong play, like locking your opponent from being able to swing in with allies to remove Sage, when Sage is such a strong tempo positive ally for you, being able to heal and like still push damage and clear things off the board. Really strong. Burn damage is an issue with this deck. Luckily, in this current meta in DTR, it's not that prevalent. But in the matchups that do come up, we have the 3 of Blanche because we just want to see it as soon as possible. We can take advantage of the level 2 fast activation, and having multiple is never not a bad thing. A lot of times, the decks that really push for burn damage, we can just like cut Ceasing Edict as a 3/3 swap there easily. Just a really strong card. If we need to go like a little bit wider board and swing in with a bunch of 1/1/1s, like against Merlin, for example, and apply pressure onto them, bringing Blanche in doesn't feel too bad, as well as the fact that it does protect us from like their fireballs and stuff. 2 of Regal Inquisition in certain matchups like Luxem and stuff, we can just sideboard these in to help us a little bit, especially for the fact that like Frozen Dismissal isn't as useful in those matchups, so we can just cut those, put in the Regal Inquisitions and anything else we want to do. Stuff like that. It feels really good, and the fact that we get to replay them using our Coronal Rejuvenation feels really good. We'll play the 4th copy of Ceasing Edict in matchups that really care, that swing in with the weapon a lot of times. So against like Seal, against Lorraine, very good card to just bump it up to the 4 in those matchups. Now, this is a card that when you read it, you think is garbage, and I agree. But the thing about this game is that there are no Wrath of Gods, no board wipes or anything in this game, essentially. Like nothing very good like that to like restabilize the board and like reset the game state. Tsunami at least helps kind of do that. So one of the big issues with this deck against decks that like to go wide is that we don't have a really good answer to deal with a bunch of like 2 health allies. And a bunch of 1 health allies is very easy because a lot of our stuff swings for 1. But if our opponent goes wide with like 2 health or 3 health allies, it's really annoying. This is kind of to like hopefully correct that issue. I might actually try playing this as a 3-of in those matchups, but when I did play this at the regional, I did sideboard it in those matchups where we have wide board. Usually it's a fire deck that goes wide. Games 2 and 3, this card comes in. A lot of time at level 3, this is a 0 cost card because of the Empower 3. So you can just be like 0 cost, deal 2 to 3 damage to the board, and now their board is like mostly gone, and you get to swing in with your little guys now to clean up anything else that's left. If you have your thing facing south when you do play this, it makes it easier for you to clear off the 4 health allies with your 1 attack swings. What's cool about this card too is that when you go to level 3 and you have these in the grave and you put them under rejuvenation, you now have access to this board wipe that only costs 2, and then you have the ability to start the turn going as south as at level 3 to do 3 damage to their board to clear off things, and then that will move. Then you can move your what's it called? The shifting currents the way you want. What's interesting about this card though is you got to keep in mind that when you use this card and trigger your level 3 Kongming effect, if you want the south effect, you can play this card if you're not already facing south, push it back south if you're east or west, and then it'll resolve and do the 3 damage to everything that's rested allies that you don't control. But if you do this when you're already facing south, you have to choose not to move the wind if the 3 damage matters to you. Otherwise, if it's only the 2 that matters, then you can move it any way you want. But this card was surprisingly pretty effective for what I wanted it to do. It played out exactly how I thought it would, and it felt pretty good. I'd like to test this a little bit more, but with the meta changing pretty soon with the new set, I will probably mess around with Kongming still into the new set. But I'm very excited to play the new Assassin Merlin a lot and test some other Crux stuff because I never really played with Crux element cards before. So this next set I'm going to be playing a lot. I already got my playset of Pendragons, the card I hate the most. Now I get to be part of the problem. Like I said earlier, the extra 2 water barriers, a lot of times in certain matchups, you just put these in because they're not attacking too often. Instead, they're casting spells like against Merlin. We just go water barrier, take 1 damage instead of like 10 damage from their fireballs. Enervating Decay is a card also I started siding in as a 1-of for Merlin and any other decks that have really huge allies with like fat butts essentially. It's nice. You can pay for, like, they swing in with the deer, the majestic, I forget the name of the card, but it's the 4/10 that's really annoying, and it's actually really aggravating for this deck. So in games 2 and 3, you have an option to like draw into Decay, and if they don't have an answer when they swing in with the ally, you get a heal 10 and destroy their deer, which is pretty funny. And usually that's enough to win the game immediately because you just go back to 0 and they have to like work again to do 25 damage in a turn. Card's pretty funny. No one really plays around it because no one knows it exists for the most part. I like this card as a random 1-of. It's not that important. I do think it does help in the Merlin matchup a bit, and when your opponent sees it for the first time, after that, they always have to be careful if you're holding up like a 5 or more card hand, which you do a lot of times with this deck because a lot of the time you push damage, it's during their end phase or recollection phase. And then you just draw your hand back, draw all your cards back from memory into your hand, and then pass the turn usually if you don't have to do anything else. Because we're playing at fast speed all the time, it means we always have really good interactions with our opponent. Would I ever bring this up more than one? Probably not. I played it at the LA Regional. I went 3-3-1 with this deck. I probably could have had a better score. 2 of the games I lost, I lost one of the games because my opponent used like 3 end caps already, and I was like, well, if I push for game here and they don't have the 4th end cap, I just win now. But if on the crackback I lose, and it was a kind of a time issue where we were already in time, and I was like, whatever, I'm just going to try to go for it. They had the 4th end cap and I lost. And then there was another game where I think I've misplayed based on how I materialized certain things and my defensive tools in a certain order, or chose not to, and that, I think that kind of costed me the game in one of those. So I probably could have come out way ahead if I had more time playing with this deck. But when I went with this deck at the regional, I kind of had like maybe 2 games on it after testing out, and I went to that regional like, I was like, screw it, I'm just going to come in with this and see how it goes, because I was still testing this and figuring it out a little bit. And literally that same day, or the day before, is when I just jammed 4 Frozen Dismissals in and never tested the deck with Frozen Dismissal in the main. I liked it a lot though, so I think at least having 2 to 3 in the main is really good for you. But yeah, And then finally, we play the final copy of Sage in certain aggro matchups and stuff, or in control mirrors or something. Sage is just a good card that's just a threat that keeps coming back. It heals you, helps you stabilize, which is very, very important. But yeah, that's the entire deck here. If you have any questions about it, it's a very hard control deck. You're looking to go long. Any games you go very long, you usually win for the most part. I've liked this list a lot. I do think it could be refined a little bit more, but with the new cards coming out, I think there's a lot of cool things that Kongming will take advantage of in the next set, hopefully. And yeah, but if you're someone who thinks Extricating Touch is a lot of fun and a really cool card, and this I think is undervalued a lot right now, especially going into the next set, try this out. The fact that you go 1-for-1 with your opponent a lot of the time, but you have this engine built in you where you get to draw more cards than your opponent consistently, especially when you get to level 3, when you draw up to 3 cards a turn very easily because of Tera Support and your inherited effect from your level 2 Kongming, means that going 1-for-1 with your opponent and like ripping cards out of the hand you don't want them to have feels really good, because if you go down 1 influence, but it doesn't matter because you've basically got 3 influence going to at level 3, which pays for the touch itself. And the fact that, like I said, Rejuvenation is such a strong, powerful card that isn't being abused more often. I'm sure at some point when Rejuvenation, like especially Kongming or some Tera, get some extra stuff that's going to be really strong, Rejuvenation might be a really powerful card moving forward. I really like the things Tera is doing. It's just unfortunate Tera doesn't have a lot of really powerful game finishers that are like built into one card. Instead, we're kind of in this weird scenario where we had to play like Fine Tooth Bagwas and have enough influence to like do 16 damage in 1 turn to win the game. And sometimes you're just in a situation where you're like, that's cool, all my Bagwas are like in the bottom 10 cards of my deck, and I couldn't win the game because of that. Having other ways to win the game out in the next, hopefully moving forward for water and like mages in general, will probably be really cool. And I hope to see, you know, a little bit more Tera support so people get feel how powerful the whole resource advantage Tera gives you. It feels really good. If you love drawing cards, Tera is going to be right up your alley. But yeah, with that being said, guys, I hope to see you guys in our next video. I think the next one after this will probably be one where I talk about the PTM spoilers a bit, the cards I like at least so far. If not, maybe some match videos. Maybe I will not be lazy and start bringing my camera setup to locals this Sunday and get some matches recorded. But besides that, guys, hopefully see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment. I'm very active at replying to like basically everyone. But yeah, see you guys later.